Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are getting into something fascinating and maybe a little frustrating. The very personal world of our financial decisions.
We're cracking open Morgan Housel's brilliant book, The Psychology of Money.
Right. And his core argument is so wonderfully counterintuitive. He says that doing well with money has, almost nothing to do with how smart you are.
Yeah, nothing to do with advanced math or what fancy school you went to.
Exactly. It's almost all about how you behave. It's a behavioral game, not an IQ test.
Hmm.
So our mission today is to unpack some of these key psychological lessons that really govern wealth and greed and happiness. We want to show you what they mean for the choices you make every single day.
Forget the spreadsheets for a bit.
Yeah, we're diving into the human side of this.
And we have to start with this just incredible contrast. It really anchors the entire discussion. You have to hear about these two very different men. First, picture this anonymous genius tech executive. This guy designed and patented a key component in early Wi-Fi routers. This was back in his 20s. He got a huge, sudden windfall of wealth.
Right, the classic tech story.
The classic story. But his behavior was a complete disaster. At one point, he's at a luxury hotel, he gets his friends together, and just for fun, he starts throwing $1,000 gold coins into the Pacific Ocean.
He's doing what now?
Skipping them like stones, just for the fun of it. He was always bragging, living this totally unsustainable lifestyle, and, well, you can guess what happened. He went broke, lost it all.
Wow. Okay, so hold that image in your head, the genius skipping gold into the sea. Now let's compare him to a man named Ronald Read.
Totally different story.
Ronald Read was a janitor for 17 years. He spent 25 years fixing cars at a gas station. No financial education, no high-powered career.
None of it. He bought a simple 2-bedroom house for $12,000 when he was 38 and just lived there his whole life.
And when he died in 2014 at age 92, he left $6 million to his local hospital and library. His total net worth was over $8 million.
A feat that fewer than 4,000 Americans managed that year. And how did he do it?
How?
He just saved what little he could, put it consistently into blue-chip stocks, and was just patient for decades. He let compounding do its quiet work.
The contrast gets even crazier, though, when you bring in Richard Fuscone.
Oh, yeah.
This guy was the polar opposite of Ronald Read. Harvard-educated, a Merrill Lynch executive, retired in his 40s to become a philanthropist.
A picture of success.
The absolute picture.
Yeah.
But he borrowed heavily to finance this enormous lifestyle. We're talking an 18,000 square foot home, 11 bathrooms, 2 pools.
It's just a crazy amount of overhead. So when the 2008 financial crisis hit,
He was wiped out, lost everything, filed for bankruptcy.
so there it is. The janitor's simple behavior, patience, and frugality, it just completely eclipsed the massive education and experience of the Harvard exec and the tech genius.
It's not a hard skill, it's a soft skill.
That's the foundation. It's all built on behavior.
Okay, so that's the foundation we have to build on. Let's dig into Housel's first big idea, which is that no one is crazy. When you see someone make a financial choice, that seems, totally illogical.
Taking way too much risk or maybe way too little.
Right. It's easy to just write them off as irrational. But the reality is their decision is probably perfectly rational to them. It's anchored in their own unique life experiences.
This is, I think, the most profound idea in the whole book. Your personal experiences with money make up, maybe 0.0000001% of what's ever happened in financial history.
A tiny fraction.
But those experiences form maybe 80% of how you think the world works.
So you're basically projecting your own tiny slice of history onto the entire future.
Exactly. And you can see it in generations. Imagine you were born in 1970. In your teens and 20s, your formative investing years, the S&P 500 went up nearly tenfold, even after inflation.
So for you, the stock market is just this reliable wealth machine.
It's your default setting. But now, contrast that with someone born in 1950. During their teens and 20s, the market, adjusted for inflation, went literally nowhere.
So for them, it's just a risk. It's pure volatility.
You've got two equally smart people, but their view on risk is fundamentally different, and it's just based on the pure luck of when they were born.
And it's not just stocks, right? Inflation's another big one.
A huge one. If you grew up in the 60s, you saw prices triple. So you're probably, permanently wired to fear your money losing value. If you were born in 1990, inflation has been pretty low your whole life.
So it might not even seem like a serious threat. It's just background noise.
It's just not on your radar in the same way.
Which brings us to a perfect example of this in action. The lottery ticket paradox.
Oh, yeah.
Housel points out that Americans spend more on lottery tickets than on movies, video games, music, sports, and books combined.
It's a staggering amount of money, and it's concentrated. The lowest income households spend about $412 a year on tickets.
And we know these are often the same people who can't come up with $400 for an emergency.
So they're actively making their own financial situation more fragile. It looks completely irrational.
But if you try to see it from their perspective, it clicks. They aren't buying a 1 in a million statistical chance. They are buying the only tangible dream they feel they can access.
The hope of getting the good stuff that other people just take for granted.
It's an appealing fiction. And in that context, paying for that feeling, that bit of hope, well, it starts to feel almost reasonable.
It's the cost of hope. And that insight is just crucial.
So moving from behavior to results, we have to talk about the force that makes these decades-long choices so powerful, and that's compounding.
The greatest show on earth. And yet it's so counterintuitive. Our brains just don't get it.
Why not?
Because our brains love linear growth. We get 8 plus 8 plus 8. That's 24. It's easy.
But exponential growth.
8 times 8 times 8, that's 512. It's mind-boggling. We just can't intuitively grasp that explosive power.
And the best example of this has to be Warren Buffett.
Of course.
People write thousands of books on his stock picks, his value investing philosophy. But his real success is tied to just two simple behavioral things.
One, he started investing when he was 10 years old.
Just a kid. And two, his astonishing longevity. He just stayed in the game consistently well into his late 80s and beyond.
His secret is time.
Let's just run the thought experiment to prove it. If Buffett had been more normal, let's say he started at 30 with $25,000 and retired at 60.
A pretty typical successful career.
His net worth today would be about $11.9 million, which sounds great.
Until you realize that's 99.9% less than his actual fortune.
His genius wasn't the 22% annual return. It was applying that return over the longest possible period. His secret is time.
Exactly. We spend all our energy trying to boost that annual return when the most powerful factor is just adding more years.
So if time is the key ingredient, the prerequisite has to be survival. You have to be able to stick around.
And that's the critical link. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two completely different skills.
Oh, so?
Getting money requires optimism, taking risks, but keeping it. That requires the total opposite. Humility, frugality, and, a healthy dose of paranoia, the survival mindset.
You see this play out so tragically throughout history.
Take the 1929 market crash. You had Jesse Livermore, maybe the greatest trader of his day. He made the equivalent of $3 billion by shorting the market.
A massive win. At the same time, you have Abraham Jermansky, a multimillionaire real estate guy who was totally wiped out.
And here's the twist. Just 4 years later, Livermore, who was so overconfident from that huge win, he kept making bigger and bigger bets.
And he lost it all.
He lost everything and took his own life. Both of them were masters at getting wealthy, but neither of them mastered the art of staying wealthy.
Survival just wasn't their priority.
And that comes from not having a sense of enough. Look at Rajat Gupta, former CEO of McKinsey, worth $100 million. Or Bernie Madoff, who was already hugely wealthy from his legitimate business before the Ponzi scheme.
Why risk everything for more?
Because for some people, the goalpost just keeps moving. The taste of more increases their ambition faster than it increases their satisfaction.
They just can't stop.
And it pushes them toward reckless, unnecessary risk.
Which brings us back to that Buffett quote. To make money they didn't have and didn't need. They risked what they did have and did need. And that's foolish.
Simply foolish. So the ability to stick around long enough for compounding to work. That's the single most important factor. It means planning for your plan not to go according to plan.
That's what Housel calls room for error.
Right. It's not about being conservative. It's about building a buffer that lets you endure the inevitable surprises. It means having enough cash so you're never forced to sell your investments at the worst possible time.
So if survival is the path, what's the ultimate destination? What's the highest return money actually pays?
It's freedom. That's simple.
Unequivocally, all the research shows that having control over your time, doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, that is a far more reliable predictor of happiness than your salary or the size of your house.
And this feels more important now than ever. Most of us have these thought-based jobs.
Right. The tool is your own head, so you never really leave work. You might be richer than past generations, but it can feel like you have less control over your own time.
So money is the tool to buy that control back.
Yes, but people so often confuse money with status, and they fall into what Housel calls the man-in-the-car paradox.
I love this one. The idea is that when you see someone driving a Ferrari, you don't think, wow, the person driving that car is cool.
No, you think, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool.
The admiration you think you're getting is actually just people projecting themselves onto your stuff.
Nobody is as impressed with your possessions as you are, which leads to the crucial difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Rich is current income. It's visible spending. The fancy watch, the expensive car. Wealth is hidden. It's the income you haven't spent.
It's financial assets that haven't been turned into stuff you can see.
Which means that spending money to show people how much money you have is literally the fastest way to have less money.
Wealth is just silence.
Yeah.
It's options. It's flexibility for the future.
Right. And if we accept that success is driven by all these messy human emotions, we have to change how we make decisions.
We have to be reasonable rather than strictly rational.
Exactly. Rational is what's mathematically optimal on a spreadsheet, but it's often impossible for a real human to stick with because it ignores fear and regret. Reasonable is realistic. It's the plan you can actually stick with long term.
The perfect illustration of this is Harry Markowitz. The guy won a Nobel Prize for modern portfolio theory. It's all about complex, mathematically optimal investing.
And when someone asked how he invested his own retirement money,
He said he'd just split it 50-50 between stocks and bonds.
the simplest allocation possible. And when they pushed him, he said he did it to minimize future regret. He knew the emotional side was more important than squeezing out another theoretical percentage point of return.
That's reasonable over rational.
Absolutely. And you contrast that with some of these purely rational theories that say a young person should use leverage. On paper, it works out over time, even if you get wiped out once or twice.
But who can actually do that? No human can watch their life savings evaporate and then just calmly start over from zero. The emotional damage is too great.
The emotional ruin kills the plan. That's why reasonable is better.
And finally, we have to accept that nothing is free. The great returns you get from investing over the long term, they come with a price tag.
And that price is volatility and uncertainty. That's the cost of admission to the show.
Look at the Dow from 1950 to 2019. It returned about 11% annually. Fantastic.
Phenomenal return.
But the price you paid was that on nearly half of all those days, the market was trading at least 5% below its previous high.
So half the time you looked at your account, it felt like you were losing. That feeling of uncertainty, that is the price.
So you have to see that volatility as a fee, not a fine.
A fee is something you pay for a good outcome. A fine is a punishment. People who try to avoid the fee by timing the market or hiding in cash, they're trying to get the reward without paying the price.
And they just end up paying double in missed opportunity.
They do.
This has all shown that really the path to financial success is less about what you know and more about how you act. It's about prioritizing survival and time and building in that room for error.
And the final lesson to tie it all together is this. Be so careful who you take your cues from. You have to define your own game.
What do you mean?
A stock price that looks totally insane to you, a long-term investor with a 40-year horizon, might make perfect sense to a day trader whose horizon is 8 hours.
You're playing different games.
Completely different games. If you're playing for decades, don't let the people playing for minutes spook you into making bad decisions during a bubble or a crash.
And that brings us to the final provocative thought for you to take away.
We are all, every one of us, susceptible to telling ourselves these appealing fictions to justify comfortable decisions. We have to fiercely focus on the few things we can actually control. Our savings rate, our humility, our time horizon.
Because the world is ultimately driven by surprising outlier events that history can guide us on, but can never fully predict.
Exactly.
That is some wisdom worth investing in. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the human side of finance. And for you listening, maybe take 5 minutes today, not to check your stocks, but to define your personal survival goal, that line you just will not cross.